Good evening. I'm John Yang. Tonight, two communities half a world apart are struggling with the aftermath of a mass shooting. In Sydney, two gunmen killed at least 15 people celebrating Hanukkah on Australia's most famous beach. Authorities call it a terrorist attack on Jewish Australians. And we begin in Providence, Rhode Island, where two Brown University students were killed and 9 others wounded when a man opened fire in a classroom where a review session for an economics exam was going on. Authorities say a person of interest, described as a man in his 20s, was taken into custody at a hotel about 20 miles from Providence. Today, police patrolled the streets around the Brown University campus as snow fell. It was a stark contrast to last night when police responded in force to reports of an active shooter. They searched the campus for a suspect. Students were told to shelter in place. For some, that meant a classroom. Others were escorted to an athletic center. Engineering student Chiang Heng Qian was working in a lab when the alert went out.
We decided to close all the doors and turn also the light off and hide under the desks and wait for the next notification.
Another witness described the scene last night.
Someone was getting CPR. I've seen a few people getting carried out on stretchers.
Video from surveillance cameras show a figure coming out of the building where the shooting took place. Police won't say if it led them to the man they took into custody. This morning, Providence Mayor Brett Smiley reflected on this difficult time.
We knew it could happen anywhere, including here, but that's not the same as it happening in our community. And so this is an incredibly upsetting and emotional time for Providence, for Brown, for all of us.
School officials have canceled classes and exams for the rest of the year. Many students will head home for the holidays. What should be a joyous time now shattered by the tragic cycle of gun violence. It's a sad sign of the times that this was not a new experience for at least 2 Brown students. They had been through shootings at their high schools. Ian Donis is a reporter at Ocean State Media, which is Rhode Island's PBS and NPR stations. Ian, is there anything new on the investigation?
The most significant development, John, is that early Sunday, law enforcement took into custody a person of interest at a hotel in Coventry, about 25 miles southwest from Providence. Officials have been very guarded in releasing information about the suspect. They say they don't want to compromise the information. One of the few things we know is that he's a man in his 20s. FBI Director Kash Patel on X tweeted that the FBI helped to locate the person through cell phone tracking and a tip from Providence police, but the Providence authorities have been very guarded in saying anything beyond that.
They haven't said much about motive, but is there any speculation about the building that he chose for this attack?
It certainly raises a lot of questions. The place where the shooting took place is an engineering and physics building where an exam was being given. That's a very specific location. If a mass shooter wanted to create the most carnage, that's probably not the place they would go. So, but officials have not said whether the person of interest had any prior connection with Brown University. So that is an obvious question to follow. And as you say, they have not cited anything as far as a motive at this point.
What do we know about the status of the students who were wounded?
There's some better news about that. Today, officials said that 7 of the 9 injured are now in stable condition. That's improvement from Saturday when they were critical. One person is still critical but stable, and one of the injured has been discharged from the hospital.
And at the briefing earlier, I know that there was they offered a reason why the names of the 2 victims haven't been released.
Yes, the mayor of Providence said not all the families had been notified yet, and that was the explanation for why there have not been identification yet of the 2 students who were killed and the other people who were injured.
And he said that at least one of the families was traveling, so that they're difficult to reach. What's the situation on campus, or what's the mood on campus right now?
Well, this takes place in Rhode Island, the smallest state in the nation, where we're all pretty closely connected with one another. There was clearly a lot of anxiety and concern when the shooter was considered still at large yesterday. Officials had put a shelter-in-place order in effect that was lifted after the person of interest was apprehended today. I think there's a lot of sadness. Certainly Rhode Island has experienced gun violence in the form of crime and even shootouts with people involved in crime, but there's never been a mass shooting of this type, and there's a lot of sadness. Brown University president Christina Paxson said the campus is reeling and that it will take a long time for people to cope with this. State and city officials have made counseling resources to try and assist in that effort, but it's a difficult journey.
At Brown, is there any discussion or any concern about how easily this suspect was able to enter a classroom building?
Indications were that access was a little bit easier to this building because exams were being given. University officials said when exams are being given like that, the outside doors to buildings are open. As they explained it, usually someone has to check in the evening, but there are a lot of porous places in an open society, and how to stop something like this against a person intent on committing violence is just a really tough question to resolve.
Ian Donis of Ocean State Media in Rhode Island. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
There's late word since we spoke with Ian that authorities have identified the person of interest as 24-year-old Benjamin Erickson. There are no other details.